Have you ever been faced with a situation that you really wanted to do something and your heart was saying yes, but your mind was saying no? Well, I've often been faced with this dilemma in my life. About 8 years ago, when I was still employed and everything was going right for me, I mean, the company loved me, my colleagues loved me, my clients appreciated me, there was no pain that was forcing me to leave. But my soul deep inside me was crying out that this is the time to leave, and that time is now. Now, you've got to understand that I had no exit strategy planned. I had taken none of the practical steps. I don't even remember right now whether I had any savings at the time. I just knew that the time had come and that I had to leave. Because I knew if I stayed a minute longer to weave that net, I would never make that leap. Courage is sometimes the willingness to act despite the fear that you might have. So I handed in my resignation, and immediately the company reacted with every move they could possibly think of to keep me. So Jeremy, the vice president, to whom I was reporting at the time, said, "You and I, we need to have a talk away from the office because I don't understand why you're leaving. Do you even have another job to go to?" And I said, "No." So he said, "That's simply crazy. No one does that." So we got into his car and he drove us around the block, and each time we passed by the entrance door of the company, he raised my salary by 10%. I think we had got to around 50% and he was just shaking his head saying, "You're crazy." He says, "Are you unhappy here?" I said, "No." I said, "I don't have to be unhappy in order to go and do what I want to do." So he said, has anyone said anything to you? And I said, "No, nobody has said anything mean to me. That's not why I'm leaving." He said, "Is it the money? Because clearly I've been making you an offer you should not be refusing if you were in your right mind, and you're still leaving." And I said, "No, it's not the money, because no amount of money is going to change the fact that it is time for me to leave." So I eventually did leave, and instead of the standard 2 weeks notice that we give to a company when you leave, I gave them 2 months, and I left with grace and professionalism and tied all of the loose ends and handed over my work to colleague. Now the interesting thing is, my very first significant contract, client contract, 6-figure contract, came from the president of that same company. So when you're leaving, don't burn your bridges, build them. Another time was, I think might have been a couple of years ago when we went to Guatemala. I remember when John announced the fact that he would be taking some of us with him to Guatemala, and I could hear this thunder in my heart that I wanted to go. My heart was saying yes with everything it had, but I had all kinds of obstacles to going to Guatemala. I had clients that wanted to pull out of their contracts if I was to go away for just a week. I had all kinds of problems, and then eventually the client, and I was adamant because I was saying yes to my heart, and I was really, really deeply committed to going to Guatemala at that time. Well, the funny thing is, I spoke to my husband. He could see that I really wanted to go, and he said, "Okay, we'll put it on the credit card. You go because you clearly want to go." So I committed. I took that leap. I took the risk, and that big client pulled out of their contract, which meant my income had stopped. But before the trip even materialized, I got this letter out of the blue from Revenue Canada for a mistake that they had made with my tax returns 7 years prior to this date for the exact amount that covered my trip to Guatemala. You see, when you say yes to your heart, the resources always pop up. In the battle between your heart and your mind, always let your heart win and let your mind serve the command of your heart, and that's when you will see success.
413